Becoming invisible would probably be the best superpower one could have. You would be able to do anything and everything while everyone else scratches their heads. Who keeps tapping my shoulder? Unfortunately, mutants and superhumans don't exist. But what does exist is the potential to make a super gadget. While some might call it magic, those who possessed it believed it to be true. And come on, you might be skeptic on hearing people used to wear caps of invisibility, but what if I were to say you had one? Then everyone around you would say you're performing some sort of magic, while you yourself would know it was no magic, it was for real. With that in mind, let's jump into our book of legends and myths, and visit a few people that had the ability to become invisible. One thing that definitely isn't invisible is the bell icon. So take a quick second to click on the notification button to get updated with new interesting videos like this one. We know the gods and other mythical creatures had their awesome magical potions, spells, and gadgets. And oftentimes these gadgets were made by dwarfs, who would be highly skilled craftsmen and possess the power to provide magical functions to their works. We all remember the Stormbreaker, right? One of these magical objects built by the dwarves was the magical ring of gyges, that granted its owner the ability to become invisible at will. This ring was mentioned by the philosopher Plato in Book 2 of his work, Republic. Gyges founded the Mernad dynasty of Lydian kings and reigned from 716 BC to 678 BC. There are different accounts of his story, but let's take a look at the one shared by Glaucon, the philosopher Plato's older brother. In his version of the story, he talks of one of the ancestors of Gyges who was a shepherd. When an earthquake occurred and gave way to a cave in the mountainside, that shepherd found a tomb with a bronze horse with a corpse of a creature that was larger than a man in that cave. The creature was wearing that ring, and obvious as it is, he took the ring, and when he wore it, he realized he was able to become invisible by adjusting it. From then, he came up with a plan to capture the throne of Lydia. He first arranged to become one of the messengers of the king. From there, he seduced the queen with his ring of invisibility and managed to murder the king and become the king of Lydia himself. We know from the histories of Herodotus that a man named Gyges was a subordinate of the king Candaules of Lydia, who seduced the queen and killed the king and seized the throne and later married the queen. As for the ring of Gyges, it is up to you whether you want to believe it or not. However, the reality was probably that the ring is a mythical object. Another magical object was the cap of invisibility, worn by gods and goddesses in Greek mythology. It was a helmet that Athena, Hermes, Hades, and Perseus wore whenever they needed to become invisible. It was their go-to weapon whenever a tough situation arose. This helmet wasn't actually made by the dwarves, but the opposite. Massive, ugly giants had made this magical cap. These creatures were known as Cyclops, and they were well known for their Cyclopean masonry and blacksmithing, and also for their ugliness. They were the children of Gaia, Mother Earth, and Uranus. These Cyclops were giants with one eye representing the sun in the middle of their foreheads. Their father thought of them so shockingly hideous that he threw them into Tartarus, which was the lower region of the underworld. These Cyclops were held as prisoners of Tartarus, and the god Zeus had just liberated them on the condition that they would work for him. The giants wanted to return the favor, and of course, building some magical weapon or device, something that they were good at, and of course, they were skilled craftsmen. The Cyclops went to work, forging for Zeus the lightning and thunderbolts of his wrath. For Poseidon, they made a huge trident, a three-pronged fork with wicked points. And for Hades, later lord of the underworld, they built a magic cap of invisibility. Hades was the owner of the cap of invisibility. He used it to great effect when he fought the Titans. Everyone feared Hades when he wore his cap of invisibility, and believed him to be even more dangerous than before. On several occasions, the goddess Athena also wore the cap of invisibility. During the Trojan War, she had shook hands with the enemy Diomedes. That was when she used the cap to become invisible in order to escape the eyes of Ares, the Greek god of war, and one of the 12 Olympians. With her help, Diomedes was able to injure the god of war with a spear. The god Hermes also wore the cap of invisibility when he was forced to fight with the giant Hippolytus, and he won the fight. One of the most famous stories about the cap of invisibility involves hero Perseus' slaying of the Medusa monster. Perseus was out to vanquish Medusa once and for all, and luckily he had the help from the gods. Medusa, on the other hand, was out of luck. Her fate had been sealed once the goddess Athena had cursed her. Perseus was given special weapons in order to defeat Medusa and escape with his life from her monstrous siblings. He was given the cap of invisibility by Athena, and with its help he was able to escape the immortal monsters Stheno and Euryale after he had decapitated Medusa. You could even call the cap of invisibility the cap of invincibility, as it offered full protection to the wearer, and in addition to that, the wearer could even escape the eyes of supernatural beings. This cap was also known as the cap of Hades, helm of Hades, or helm of darkness. Not only will we find caps of invisibility, we will find similar items and gadgets that work similarly. When we look into Welsh mythology, we will find the mantle of invisibility in the story of Culhwch and Olwen. In a fairy tale, Jack the Giant Killer, the hero is rewarded with many magical gifts, one of them being the coat of invisibility. But if we take a look into Norse mythology, we will see that Jack's coat was actually borrowed from the tale of Tom Thumb and from other Celtic stories of Mabinogion. In German mythology, we find a dwarf king who is the owner of the Tarnkappe, which also enables him to become invisible at will, similar to the Greek gods and goddesses. Even in Japan, we will find the Kakuremino, which is a magical raincoat of invisibility. The story of Momotaro, the Peach Boy, resembles that of Jack the Giant when he collects treasures from ogres, and one of the treasures happens to be the raincoat of invisibility. Sometimes we will find myths and legends that recount stories in which gods and goddesses would just vanish into thin air, and in other accounts we will find that they used a magical cap of invisibility. So where did this magical cap of invisibility go? We have it even today. In the game Dragon Quest, there is an equipment called the Hades helm. However, it is cursed and useless in every game except for Dragon Quest IX. In Dragon Quest VIII, it can be alchemized into a great helm. We also saw the cap of invisibility in Percy Jackson and the Olympians, where Annabeth Chase is given a New York Yankees baseball cap by her mother. It was actually the cap of invisibility in disguise. In the same series, we also see Luke Castellan stealing Hades' Helm of Darkness along with Zeus's Master Bolt. In Dan Simmons' novel, Ilium, Thomas Hockenberry takes hold of the cap of invisibility through Aphrodite, who schemes to assassinate the goddess Athena. In the Italian mythological comedy of 1962, Arrivano i Titani, the cap of invisibility is used, but in this version it only works at night. The list can go on and on, as writers and movie makers use the same plots and same concepts over and over again in their own way and make something new. And of course, gamers and comic lovers are fans of the cap or cloak of invisibility. And then again, there may be some science nerd thinking he can make one exist in reality. Until he does, let's all stay in hope that it will be in stores pretty soon. But for those who are no-nonsense lovers, here's a quick reveal. For those kings and queens that used the so-called cap of invisibility at war or on the battlefield, maybe it was just a cap that let out smoke or fumes that would hide them from the enemy and make them, in other words, invisible. If you liked our video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to visit our channel to watch more fun videos.